Hey y'all, it's me Whit here with a tutorial that I have been wanting to shoot for a very long time. I really want to just go over what I use and how I create my crochet faces. So first off, I use this needle. It's been through the ringer. It's my favorite needle. I use embroidery scissors, and then I use the smallest sewing pins. It's just what I prefer. So that's the product number there if you want to get those. They're just easier for me to use. And then for the eyes, you really don't need much yarn. You really need like a yard of each color. Maybe 2 yards of the white and the black, and then 1 yard of the iris color. So yeah, it's pretty simple. And then I use a 2.75 millimeter hook for DK weight yarn. So to get started, we'll just get right into the pattern. You're going to do the magic circle. I don't really have a technique video on this, but I'll do it slowly so you can see how I do mine. After creating your magic circle and doing 1 chain, you'll do 6 single crochet stitches and slip stitch to join in the round. I pull my slip stitch tight, and then I also double check and make sure that my magic circle is as tight as can be, because I don't want any hole in the center of the eye. I want it to be completely solid. We're going to go ahead and switch to the iris color, but we are not going to cut our black thread. Our black thread is going to be used, or black yarn. I'm so used to saying thread. We won't cut our black yarn because we're going to use it to seam the eye to the doll, and we're also going to use it to make the eyebrows. So with your iris color, go ahead and do 5 single crochet, and you're going to leave that 6th stitch open. For the final iris stitch, I'm going to leave my 2 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab my eye white color to do the final yarn over and pull through. This will ensure that I have a smooth transition of color between the iris and the eye white color. Give it the brown a little tug just to make it, neat. We're going to turn our work, and now we'll be working on the right side of the eye. And I forgot to mention prior to this, the first 2 steps are worked on the wrong side. For this eye white color, you're going to do 2 single crochet increase in each stitch. So we're going from 5 stitches to 10. When we get to the last eye white stitch, we will leave 2 loops on the hook again and switch over to the black yarn. We'll use the same tail that we left back from creating the iris. It's okay that it goes in front. It's not going to be noticeable. I did my stitches kind of tight, so it's kind of hard for me to get back in there. So let that be a lesson for you. Don't stitch too tightly or you'll struggle, but we're going to do 6 single crochet across the top of the eye, and that creates kind of an eyeliner effect or an outline for the top edge of the eye. For this final stitch, you can either single crochet or slip stitch. It's up to you. I prefer a slip stitch, and then I chain one and I pull that nice and tight. I've tried it with a single crochet. That looks good too. Whichever you choose, just do it for both eyes so that they're the same. Pull it nice and tight, and now we've got a complete eye. Up next, we're gonna position and secure the eyes, and the positioning is really up to you how far up or down on the face you want the eyes. I prefer for the eyes to be in the lower half of the face, and I position them pretty far apart. It's up to you how you want your doll to look. This ultimately decides what kind of facial expression your doll will have. If you want to point them inward or downward, it's really up to you. I use sewing pins to hold the eyes in place, and I just kind of give it a look over. I don't measure or really count the stitches between the eyes. Each one of my dolls comes out a little differently because of that, and I like that. Sorry, I'm a little out of frame, but right here I'm just separating the shorter strands of yarn that were used when changing colors, and I'm going to go ahead and trim them really close to the bottom of the eye, and then I'll just tuck them under. Nothing major here. We don't have to weave them in. They're going to be secured by the yarn that we used to sew the eye down. You'll notice we've left the white and black yarn, and the white yarn will be used down here to secure the eye, and then the black yarn will be used up top. And you can also make eyebrows and eyelashes with the black yarn, so that's why I don't cut it in the earlier steps. So to get started, you're going to use the white yarn to secure the eye white, and it's pretty simple. You don't want to whip stitch it because you'll be able to see that, you know, yarn going into the eye. So I basically do what would be considered a ladder stitch, I think. I'm not even sure what the proper term is for this, but I make sure that I don't go on the outer edge of the eye with the yarn. I go underneath and then through the top. if you're going to add flecks of white to the darker parts of the eye, this is the time to do it. It's a little difficult to get the needle through to the other side, so if you want to use a thimble and be safe, I suggest it. I haven't stabbed myself yet, but you know, there's a risk. So I suggest, or I recommend, that you use a thimble. And a thimble is just that little metal cap that you put on either the end of your thumb or your index finger, whichever is going to be in the path of the needle. I don't quite know what I'm doing here. I'm just making some little white dots on the eye, and I'm making sure it's kind of a knot so that it can't get pulled out easily in case this doll is being made for a child or for someone who's going to really handle it a lot. I want to make sure that any detail that I add is not easily movable. So sorry about not being in frame. I struggle with that. But basically I'm tying a knot once again to secure the details and fluffing them up a little bit so they're nice and visible. And the last thing that I'm going to do is make my yarn go all the way to the back of the doll's head, and I'll end up tying some knots in the back to secure all these details even further at the end. We'll use the same stitching technique at the top edge of the eye, just making sure that the stitches are underneath the eye and not on the edge where they're visible. I'm going to use the same sewing pins to mark where I'd like my doll's eyebrows to be. I typically place the eyebrows maybe like a centimeter above the eyes. It really doesn't matter as long as you achieve the look that you want your doll to have. If you want to make a sad looking doll, of course you would want the inner part to be higher than the outer part. I'm going to give my doll an arch, so I'm going to go ahead and create a lower end back here, and then I'll do the same thing for the other side so that I can have, you know, symmetrical eyebrows. You can count the stitches to get the right length, the stitches between your pins, and that'll help make sure that the eyebrows are both the same length. That's up to you as well. They can be asymmetrical. Nobody's face is perfect, right? So for the eyebrows, we're going to create them using a back stitch, which is an embroidery technique. Basically what that means is we're going to go forward a little bit and then we're going to go back. So for this one, we will go forward for the bottom part of the arch, forward for the top part of the eyebrow, and then we're going to go back to complete the eyebrow. Then we'll complete all the same steps we did for the first eye, for the second eye. And the only thing I'd like to add here is that when you are creating the white flecks for the next eye, you want to make sure that they're on the same side of the eye that you chose for the first eye. So the first eye, I put the flecks on the right side. I will put the flecks on the right side of the second eye as well. Other than that, all the steps for the other eye are practically the same. So you basically use your white yarn to secure the bottom of the eye, the black yarn to secure the top of the eye, create the eyebrow and eyelashes if that's what you want for your doll. For the second eyebrow, we'll be going in the opposite direction since our tail of yarn is on the inside of the eyebrow. So we'll be working toward the outside. You'll go forward for the top edge of the eyebrow. And forward for the lower edge of the eyebrow. And then we're going to end up going back to complete the eyebrow. The final features are the nose and mouth, and we're gonna put the nose right smack dab in the middle between the eyes and the mouth, a couple of rows below that. Once again, this is about personal preference, how high or low you want the nose to be, how wide you want the nose to be, as well as how long you want the mouth to be and in what position. Do you want your doll smirking, smiling, straight faced? It's up to you. So I just go a couple of rows below the nose and a couple of stitches away from the eyes to do the mouth. And once again, this is like not an exact science. You can eyeball it, you can count the stitches, it's up to you. This is my lazy way to not have to weave ends and all that. I come in from the top of the head and go straight for the nose. And for the nose, we're gonna go out through one hole, in through the other, and back through that same first hole to create a little bump for the nose. And then you can repeat that 1 to 2 more times. It depends on how pronounced you want that nose to be. So we'll go in through the second hole and back out through the first one. The main thing is you want to make sure that you're going around stitches and not just through, you know, an empty hole. You want to pick up an actual stitch so that the nose is secure. All the way to the back behind the stitches, not through the front of the stitches. I decided 2 loops was enough for me, so I'm actually going to go ahead and stop there on the nose. I'm going to let my string get caught at the top of the head, and I do this so that the mouth and the nose don't affect each other. So if the mouth gets tugged at, it won't tighten up the nose, or if the nose gets tugged at, it won't tighten up the mouth. So we're just going to go right back down through in another hole and come out, and I'm actually going to move the mouth over a little bit. Yeah. And we'll have our needle come out through one side. And once again, I strongly recommend using a thimble. No stabs yet, but I've had some close calls. So we created the lower lip with this first loop. And you're going to go back through the first stitch that you created. And when you create your second loop, that's your upper lip. It's up to you if you want an upper lip. You might be okay with just that lower lip, kind of a slim smile. That's up to you. So many possibilities for these dolls. Each little thing that you decide gives your doll personal character, gives its own little expression. It's really cool. My final step is tying knots in all the yarn that I led toward the top or the back of the doll's head, and I just pull it on through to the center of the doll's head and snip off the excess. This is my favorite way to secure facial features to my doll, because they're gonna get hair or a hat or something that's gonna end up covering these little knots that I tie in the back and on the top of the head. So that's it. Of course, if you're going to be making a bald doll, you weave the ends in the most invisible way possible. You can still bring them to the back and then go ahead and weave them in a more invisible way by bringing the yarn through the stitches underneath. So this is the last one, and there you have it. This is how I create pretty much all of the eyes and noses for my dolls. There are a couple of different mouth techniques that I've discovered along the way, but this is the simplest and my favorite, honestly. So thank you so much if you made it this far. I appreciate you sticking with me through this whole tutorial, and if you decide to make a doll of your own, I would love to see it. You can tag me on Instagram at Whitney Marie Anderson, and you can send me messages if you have questions. I am here to help. I just want to make sure that you all are able to create dolls that you love, that your loved ones can love on, and that make great gifts. It's all about creating personal touches to things that would otherwise be pretty mundane. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. If you aren't subscribed already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you can get a notification every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much. See you on the next one.